Here we are with the January issue of our YouTube Live, focusing on Tired of Taxes. The intent for this segment is to introduce those of you who are interested in and possibly considering moving your practice from traditional tax services to various areas of financial consulting. We will discuss with Zach Meyers and Lari Masten, who joined us on how they determined and moved their practice from tax to financial consulting, and some of the wheres and areas where they practice, and how you can also consider following their lead in strengthening your practice by doing the same. Lari Masten is a CPA. She holds NACVA's Certified Valuation Analyst CVA certification, also the Master Analyst in Financial Forensics MAFF certification, and the ABAR, Accredited in Business Appraisal Review with the NACVA. She's been actively involved as a board member and instructor for nearly 2 decades. And she lives and works out of Colorado, although her clients expand, I believe, around the globe. Zach Meyers also is a CPA. He holds NACVA's Certified Valuation Analyst CVA certification. Like Lari, Zach is involved with NACVA boards and as an instructor, and he works and resides in West Virginia, but his clients also are throughout the US and probably around the globe. So thank you, Lari, Zach, for joining us this day and sharing your thoughts and insights on how you got into the profession.
Pleasure to be here.
So let's just start with it. Why did you get into the field, in this profession, and what does it offer to folks who are coming in as a beginner or as a new person in the profession? Lari?
Okay, sure, I'll go with that. Well, I got into business valuation very accidentally. I was working at a full-service CPA firm. It was Cooper's, that prior to the PricewaterhouseCoopers merger, and I had worked my way through college as a tax accountant, and then my MSA is in accounting, so I was in the audit department at this full-service CPA firm, and I hated it. I hated auditing, and I didn't mind taxes, but I had done taxes for about 6 or 7 years, but auditing just did not resonate well with me, and I made my dissatisfaction with my career choice known. And one of the partners from the tax side came and said, hey, read this report and tell me what you think. And it was a business valuation report. And long story short, I just felt, I had never heard of one before. I fell in love with it immediately and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And so that partner pulled me from the audit side over to the tax side. I did my time in the trenches doing tax work for, businesses and individuals, for many, many years after that. And alongside that, did a few little engagements here and there. And I had set a goal for myself that I'm going to do this full time because this is so much better than taxes and auditing. And so, that's kind of, why I got into it was just because I hated audit. I shouldn't say hate, that's too strong of a word. But it didn't fit with my personality quite as well. Yes, didn't like it. So getting into business valuation was just something I'd never heard of before. And I think when you kind of twist that into what does it have to offer, new entrants right now, I think there are a lot more of accounting students at the university level who are aware of valuation as a profession. They've heard of it a lot more than when I was, in the 80s and 90s, it was not something that was very commonly, talked about, although mergers and acquisitions and things happened all the time. But from a value, perspective, what does it offer to somebody coming in? I mean, it is such a dynamic career, and it's kind of at the intersection of finance and accounting. And there's this huge demand right now for entry-level associates, and it's growing by the double digits, the demand is. And we see that in a lot of the, work that we do. But, what is it? So there's a demand for people to come in and work. What does it offer that person? I think the coolest thing about valuation is that it has offerings in several different sectors. So in the public accounting, or private consulting firm sector, you can come in as a junior associate, senior associate, move up to manager while you learn the skills and craft of valuation. There's multiple lines of valuation services that are required and necessary in public accounting firms, but you could stay there, or you could kind of progress out to the corporate sector as a CFO, CEO with a background in valuation, because really, today the environment is we're growing by acquisitions, whether we're private or public companies. And, from there, you could, go sideways into the finance sector. You could be a managing director in the finance sector, or, you could even, go on and become, an entrepreneur, your own CEO in the private sector. So there's a need and a demand and kind of a place in all different sectors of what we consider the business field for someone with skills, knowledge, education, training, and business valuation. I'll stop at that.
Yeah. Thank you, Lari. What about you, Zach? Did you also do audit and not like it a lot? or what interested you in this profession? And similarly, your perspectives on what it would offer someone coming into it as a new entrant?
Sure. Unlike Lari, I actually liked audit. I was an auditor.
Of course. You liked it.
I loved it. I actually loved it. I was one of those really geeky auditors too. I was one that did the compliance stuff, the government testing, and the pension plans. And I did it for free, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years, and I really liked it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought I would retire as an auditor. But the firm that I was working for didn't see it that way. And they basically were trying to get into business valuation and litigation support, and they started looking for clients or forensic accounting firms to acquire, and they were sort of leasing employees to forensic accounting firms, and that's kind of where I started. I started off as a leased employee and working for a forensic accounting firm that did business valuation and litigation support, and the firm I was working for was supposed to acquire that firm, but the acquisition fell through after about 2 years, and I was knee deep in like 50 cases or so. And I just kind of was stuck there. But it was one of the best accidental decisions that I made in my life, really, because I love everything about business valuation and litigation support in particular. I tend to agree with Ms. Masten that there's a lot of opportunities out there right now, especially in litigation support, business valuation, because if you notice, the audit staffs are getting smaller and smaller, and it takes a lot fewer people to perform an audit now. You used to go with teams of 10 people or so, depending on how big the audit was, and now it's like you do stuff remotely. And I'm sure the audit profession is going to last for a little while, but I foresee a little bit of constriction in a lot of areas like tax and audit, because I don't think that the technology is going to, I think it's going to take over in a lot of ways. But with business valuation and litigation support, it's going to be hard before artificial intelligence can testify in court for me. I don't see that anytime soon. So I think there's an opportunity out there.
Right. So you both mentioned two pretty clear areas of specialization for where you work: business valuation and financial litigation, financial forensics. What do those things mean to a practitioner, particularly someone who is thinking of getting into the profession? Can you describe maybe a bit of what you all do as valuation and financial forensic professionals?
Yeah, sure. I'll start if that's okay. When you start thinking about what a business valuation professional does, there's just this huge breadth of things that we can do, and just at the basic core, we answer complex questions like, how do you determine the value of intellectual property? How do you find out the value of what a brand name is worth? I mean, how much should you pay for a company? How much should you pay to buy a competitor when you're folding a company in versus buying a standalone company? When you're doing this, what you do is you become part of a team that helps provide this specialized financial analysis and modeling that impacts your client's decisions, whether, it's always going to be, on a fairly important matter. Is it a strategy? Is it an acquisition? Is it asset management? Is it restructuring? Is it divestitures? Is it management planning? And then kind of more core basic people think is it valuing a business, or is it litigation support where you're explaining, to a trier of fact, the value of business or the value of lost profits or something like that. Those are kind of the two, broad areas most people think about, but there's a lot more involved with the steps that go into business valuation and the components of what a financial analyst does from a forensic accounting, perspective. And we're doing things like, that audit team that I wanted off of so bad. We're doing things like providing, documentation that supports, the audit team as well as the client, right? We're doing things like due diligence on specific economic factors or industry factors or client company issues. So the things that we do don't always lead to a number, but they typically lead to decisions that are made that are fairly, primary to just supporting business as an ongoing, service in general, allocating resources to maintain, this sounds, kind of grandiose, but economic order in some ways, because without having good analyses to make, to give to management to make good decisions, then, kind of the infrastructure of business kind of, falls away.
Zach?
Yeah, there's some really, really cool stuff that I do. Some of the stuff that I do, you don't even think about it as far as business valuation. Like, I do a lot of litigation support and writing deposition questions or cross-examination questions, or reviewing a deposition transcript, or writing questions for cross-examination of the opposing expert. Those are things that, most people probably had no clue that someone like me or Lari would do, but those are some of my favorite things to do. I do a lot of consulting and testifying expert type witness stuff, and that's two different sides of litigation. The consulting, is more behind the scenes, but you can sort of, review maybe another expert's report and point out all of the weaknesses in that report. Those are some of the really cool things that I've had the opportunity to do. I do a lot of divorces as well, and that's a very interesting and fairly lucrative area.
Where do you both see the profession going?
Lari, I'll let you take that one.
Well, I'll start off with, I think if we look at valuation from the perspective that there's value discovery that's going on right now, just with I was listening to a talk radio show the other day, and it put into perspective, it framed it really well. So if you just give me a second, in the 1920s, if you look back to 1890, there's such a broad diversification of what was going on in the economy and businesses. In 1890, it was, horses and buggies and carriages and, very no technology, and by 1920, we had cars in the streets, we had talking movies, we had technology, all of these things just in a short period of time. And if we look at 2020 right now, we look back to, 1990, that same period of time, 1990, just technology has just expanded. So we have this huge boom that's very similar that happened, 100 years ago. And so stepping back into where valuation fits, all of those changes are impacting what's going on with valuation. And so valuation has a function, and it's had a function historically, but I think that function is changing as we look forward. The function is it's, value discovery, value management, value guidance. All of these things play an indispensable role in allocating resources, maintaining order in, the court systems or in the business, sector. But when we look at these opportunities, because we have such a rapid acceleration of technology and the business model that's, changing, there's just new scopes of services and demands like e-commerce, big data, AI, and these new products and technologies all require some kind of value management services to provide some corresponding value tied to this, emerging new world that we're going to be in, right? And so the valuation industry is going to be playing an essential role in all of those opportunities, here in the U.S. and globally overseas, and mergers and acquisitions. And so when I think of opportunities, some of the things that Zach and I have mentioned, the things that we kind of do on a day-to-day basis are there. But I think looking forward, he and I both are going to be having to change the way we stand and look at the services we currently provide, because 5 years from now, it's going to look totally different, right?
Yeah. Zach, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot going on in the world in general. There's a lot going on with standards, and one of the things, this is still a field of accounting and finance. And what we do and the standards that we issue are important because, you want to have the public's trust. And so I'm seeing a lot more emphasis on a standards side of valuation with really, professional skepticism and, really digging down deep and not just blindly relying upon, everything that's handed to you. And I'm interested in seeing where that's going to go. I think that, there's, in the court system, clearly the courts rely upon us as experts to, help everyone understand the facts and evidence. But even from a, publicly traded company standpoint or various taxation standpoints, I think there's a lot of changes in the rules that are occurring globally and domestically. But I think that there's one of the best things I ever did was be on the standards board, NACVA standards board. And then I was always kind of a really geeky standards guy, but right now is a very interesting period in time to be, dealing with standards at all. I know Lari's been out overseas, I believe, and working with some of the people over there in Europe and so on. And, there's a lot going on in the world. And, accounting and tax and audit, that's great. And, we just saw a huge change in the tax laws, but there's just so much happening. It's just really just one of the most exciting times, I think. It's confusing at times, but it's really an exciting point in history to be a part of business valuation.
Yeah, and I think what, for me at least, what I like so much more about the work that I'm doing now than if I, look 25 years ago when I was just doing taxes and kind of in the trenches, is that I feel like there's some value add to what I do. And I'm not restricted by the rules and constraints of accounting and tax any longer, because there's a need for the services that I can provide that I've learned over time that go beyond just the U.S. government and regulations in some way. A lot of that's still kind of bound by courts. But what I know about valuation isn't restricted to the boundaries of the United States. I mean, I can testify in any court as long as I know what the rules are of the court. And, our job, Zach and I both, our jobs are to assist somebody else in making a decision. We're not making a decision. We're there to give them all the information that they need. And that's kind of a universal need, no matter what country you're in, right? And so when we think about this changing global economy and global environment, I think it's very important to keep our eyes and ears and mind open to these prospects that are out there. And what I'm finding is many countries look to the U.S. and how we do valuation, because even though we consider us a pioneer, profession here in the U.S., we've been doing it a lot longer than most other countries have.
Yeah.
And so, at least from a formal perspective and from a credentialing perspective, right, using some, like Zach says, some set of standards that have been developed, for all of us to follow. I think it's just totally exciting that when I first got into valuation, really the driving factor of a lot of the work was taxes, gift and estate work, and divorces. But that's just kind of no longer the case. I mean, there's a whole big space out there for a lot more valuation analysts. And that's why we see these double-digit demand needs for entrance into valuation. coming in.
That's a great segue to thank all of you for watching this segment. The NACVA, founded in 1991, pioneered the business valuation profession with the Certified Valuation Analyst CVA credential, initially offered in the US, but now around the globe. And then further by extending and building training and a body of knowledge for financial litigation. If you have been thinking about transitioning your practice into this area of financial consulting, to give you a little insight into the bodies of knowledge and training and professional responsibilities and special areas of practice for business valuation and for financial litigation, we invite you to attend one of 2 online webinar series at no cost. If you contact me directly through my email or by calling headquarters, we would be happy to extend to you attendance to our 5-part series, The Essentials of Business Valuation, which dives into a 30,000-foot overview of the profession, areas of practice, methodologies and approaches, and professional responsibilities. Similarly, we have a 5-hour, 5-part, 10-hour series, The Essentials of Financial Litigation, which also goes into the professional responsibilities for practicing in financial litigation and some of the key financial litigation areas. Lari mentioned 1 or 2 of them: matrimonial litigation, fraud, business and intellectual property damages, business interruptions, lost profits, so forth. This will at least get you some insight into these areas of practice, and you can further build upon your knowledge and possibly pursuing a certification in those areas. But NACVA is a global member organization, and we're here to roll up our sleeves and partner with you if you're interested in pursuing this as a career, and we can certainly work with you to help achieve what you're looking for your professional growth. Any closing comments, Lari, Zach?
I have a couple, and this is, maybe it's the right or the wrong form, but I have some wishes for business valuation and what I would like to see where it's going to land going forward. Mm-hmm. Can I share those with you?
Oh, absolutely, please.
Okay, so my first wish and acknowledgement is this broadening of the focus for business valuation. So, you know, we as a profession and as an industry, we need to work on broadening the areas of focus so that we can define kind of a little bit more coherently what we do as we have this field evolving and diversifying, field of practice diversifying in front of us. So that would be number 1, and that leads into number 2, that we can somehow diversify the valuation market because we do have this globalization, and it's brought along with it challenges around resources, complex financial products, business model innovation, et cetera, and valuations playing an increasing role, significant role in that, you know, development of the global, you know, and economic, social development in some way. And currently, kind of the focus of valuation, we need to shift them from the general tangible assets used to generate products to intangibles and intellectual assets that generate kind of emotional connections and experiences, because that's where our society is moving, you know, going from domestic assets to foreign assets, and the types of assets being valued are becoming more diversified. So we need to diversify and internationalize our thought process in cross-border business, because that's going to become the norm in valuation. And then my third one, my wish, and I know somebody's going to disagree with me, but to embrace new tools to support valuation. We have new technology, new applications, using the internet, big data, artificial intelligence. All of it's going to have a very far-reaching impact on valuation technology, methodology, and sustaining the business models, whether we like it or not. So we need to jump on board now, because if we manage the risks, then we can still have a role to play, because judgment cannot be replaced by AI. It still has a key role in the reasoning that goes behind a solid valuation analysis. And so, you know, if we can jump on board and kind of embrace the new technologies to support what we do, it's no different. You know, Zach was mentioning, you know, about auditing and tax. I mean, there's a lot of automation there that's happening, you know, and it's going to happen for valuation too. So if we can do that, then I think we're setting the proper stage moving forward. So those would be my 3 wishes.
I'm glad you added those. They're actually very, very impactful. Zach?
You know, I don't really have any wishes, but I would want to take a second just to point out the importance of a certification. You know, my career really didn't start until I obtained my CVA. Your Certified Valuation Analyst certification is critical, and I think that, you know, I agree with everything Lori said. You need to embrace technology. You need to, you know, hop on it right now and be open-minded. But, you know, one of the things that is very important along your journey is to try to obtain something that puts you above the rest, or at least kind of give some sort of significance to what you do. I had no idea, you know, before I got into this, how many CPAs, CVAs there are. You know, if you just like Google CPA, CVA expert, you'll see like pages and pages and pages of experts. And there's, I mean, it's some of the top people in the country. And, you know, you see a whole lot of people out there that are doing valuation without credentials, but I think credentials are very important, and I would highly suggest, you know, especially to the CPAs that are getting ready to see the CPA exam change, or the CPAs that already have the CPA and they're kind of in a standstill in their career. I think the CVA is a really good add-on to a CPA, and it really opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and honestly, there's choices amongst credentials. You know, there's the ASA. Currently in the U.S., there's ASA, CVA, ABV, if you're just looking at valuation. But my perspective, I have multiple designations. My perspective is that the CVA is the best route because, you know, and one of the driving factors is the organization itself really does support the members. I mean, the organization is out there trying to gain insight into what's changing with the valuation profession and emerging into different areas and supporting the analyst, as opposed to some of the other credentials that you can get for valuation. Focus on the technical rules to get the credential, but they don't have a long-term sustainable practice of supporting the members. And that's what's so unique about NACVA is we have a mentoring program. We have long-term relationships with people that we met when we first were going through the credentialing classes. And there's just a camaraderie amongst the members that I think it, you know, I'm against members a lot in litigation. I'm sure Zach has the same thing, other CVAs, but at the end of the day, you know, we're all part of the same family. So. Right.
Very good point. NACVA does make and extend a lot of effort and resources to not only provide the most widely recognized credentialing programs for the certified valuation analyst and for the master analyst in financial forensics, but to Lari's point, we publish a number of technical journals, several of them actually. We produce almost 250 days of continuing education a year. Not only do we provide the technical resources to know how to do valuation, how to communicate that value in reports, but also we understand that you need tools. Our members need tools, data tools, research tools, financial and research case law, resources to be successful, which are extended through the association. But even more so, if you do make the choice to transition your practice into financial consulting, you'll need to revise your business model, extend your marketing and branding to do that. And those are resources that we also extend to our members through the association. So you've been able to hear from 2 of our most active and successful members. And if you, as you're engaging with your clients, I challenge you to ask them, as you're engaging with them on whatever you're working with them on, do they know the value of their company? Are they considering some specific needs or changes from resources or selling or exiting their practice? Ask your clients yourself what it is they're looking for and are hoping to achieve with their business. And you may find that you have a ripe and very opportune market right in front of you to begin extending your practice into these areas. So again, thank you, Lari and Zach, for spending this time with us. And if you're interested, contact me, for those of you who are watching, to take advantage of 10 hours or 20 hours of continuing education in business valuation and financial litigation to possibly start your career path in this exciting and developing profession. We'll see you next time.